listening to Peter Ross.
So my guest today is a gentleman that's been broadcasting since the early 60s on Radio Caroline, also Radio Luxembourg, but I really want to talk to Tony Prince today about his experiences with Elvis Presley. Tony, welcome to the programme.
It's really a great pleasure to be here, Peter.
You travelled with Elvis and you were actually at Las Vegas with him. What period was this?
I first met Elvis in 1972. And I met him again in 73.
Was that the time that he was going through his divorce with Priscilla?
Yeah, I think pretty well. Yeah, I think it had all ended by then.
Did you see that affected him a great deal? Or?
No, not really, you know. I don't think it did affect him. I think he was having such a great time with the Memphis Mafia. I met Joe Esposito, is the guy who found him on the bathroom floor a few years ago, and I had a good chat with him. And I said, you know, when Elvis and Priscilla got married, did he have a stag night? Yeah. And he laughed. He said, why should we have a stag night? We had one every night. That was the problem. And I spoke with Uncle Vester, that's Elvis's father's brother,
yes,
who was the gatekeeper at Graceland.
Right.
And he kind of opened up a little bit about the problems with the Mafia and Priscilla. He said there was just no room for Priscilla in there, you know, it was just, she couldn't live with the Mafia, you know, they were just party animals, really, and I don't think they wanted to see very much of Priscilla. She wasn't allowed to go on set when he was making films, she wasn't allowed to go to Vegas when he was performing there, and she was just like a house mother at Gracelands. It must have been awful.
Did you see any evidence that he wasn't able to deal with them? Because there's a lot of talk that's been going on about was it his father that fired them or something?
I'm not too sure. His father outlived Elvis, so he wouldn't have kept on the Mafia. I mean, the moment Elvis died, that would have been the end of the Mafia.
Yeah.
There'd be no reason to have them anymore. They were his muckers, you know.
Well, I've just read something about it, and it said that Elvis was just this is by the time that he did pass away in 1977, just slightly before, and it was saying that Elvis was pretty fed up with the Mafia, and he got his father to fire them.
Well, I don't know about that. It may well have got rid of a few of them, maybe. I don't know. No. I can't really comment on that. The only thing I know is that Todd Slaughter, the fan club secretary, saw Elvis a third time. We saw him together twice, and he saw him I think it was about 3 months before he died, and they were at the airport waiting for his airplane to land, him and Colonel Parker.
Yeah.
And they were stood at the bottom of the gangway waiting, and they had to wait 45 minutes until Elvis stumbled down the stairs, and he looked awful, according to Todd. And one of the henchmen who Todd was talking to, waiting for Elvis, said he hasn't got long to live. So they all, the family, everybody around him knew that he was on a slippery slope.
So this wasn't a shock when he passed away?
Maybe that's why, some of them had to go, because it was better for Elvis's health, because they weren't a great influence on him.
Tell me, what was your relationship with him? I mean, you were obviously working for Radio Luxembourg at the time. You know, how did you actually get in to spend that much time with him?
In 1966-67, I was on Radio Caroline on the pirate ship, and I played a lot of Elvis because I was a mad Elvis fan.
Yes.
And I got invited to an Elvis convention with the fan club.
Right.
And because I played so much Elvis music, and because I attended so many Elvis conventions, they made me honorary president of the British fan club.
Oh, right.
And in 72, the fan club organized the first ever trip to America to see Elvis perform in Las Vegas. And we took in Memphis and Nashville and Tupelo, where he was born, and we had a fantastic trip and finally finished up in Las Vegas.
Right.
And that's where we didn't know whether we would ever meet Elvis. And it was all down to Colonel Parker, who was extremely accommodating. He let 10 people go down to see Elvis. I was one of them. He also let me go on stage and introduce the show.
Oh, wow.
Which was a personal kind of high for me.
Yeah. Was that in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it was at the Hilton Hotel. I mean, I didn't know. I had been a bit cheeky in the afternoon when Todd and I met Colonel. And he'd said, okay, tonight, you've got 250 fans here. I can't let them all go down and meet Elvis. You can't possibly meet them all. But you can certainly bring them all here tomorrow to my suite of offices.
Oh, wow.
Meet his crew, meet his team who back him up. And maybe they could buy some, Elvis products, some merchandise at a cheap price.
Yeah.
And he got a whole package of stuff together that would have cost them downstairs $200.
Yeah.
And he said something like they can have it for $80. So the next day, two things happened. The tribe all came through, 250, to meet the colonel and buy this product. And in the evening, we were watching Elvis, and Colonel Parker came over to me. He said, "Well, Mr. Prince, you want to introduce Elvis? Come on with me."
Right.
And he took me to the back of the stage. The orchestra was there ready to play Alzo Zarathustra. And Elvis was standing over in the wings ready to come on. And I was pushed in front of the drapes. Everybody clapped me. They didn't know who the hell I was.
Right.
And I introduced the Elvis show. I told everybody who the 250 fans were. And, that was it. I've got it on record. In actual fact, Peter, I've decided to put a 3 CD set out of my interviews with Elvis and his inner circle.
All right.
And a recording of the night he died when I was on Radio Luxembourg.
Yes.
So I'm really up to date myself because I've been editing that recently. So I'm up to date with all the things that Uncle Vesta said, and I've got an interview with Priscilla herself, and of course the Elvis interviews I did over the 2 years, and the introduction on stage. So it's a fabulous set, and if anybody's interested in that, if I may plug it, they could get it from dmcworld.com.
Yes, of course. Now, we'll give that another mention a little bit later.
I appreciate that.
But I want to ask you, when you meet celebrities, when you meet a lot of these celebrities, sometimes you are disappointed, sometimes, they come up to your greatest expectations. What was your feeling and what was your impression of Elvis the first time you met him?
You can't. You just get bowled over with how good-looking he is. That's what everybody says, how good-looking he is. As a human being, he was a perfect specimen. He looked fantastic. The following year, in 73, he put a bit of weight on. He was a bit jowly. But, the magnetism of the guy is so polite. He's everything you ever heard he was, and he's just very, very kind to everyone, and he answered my questions politely.
There's a lot of stories going on about Elvis about that he gave Cadillacs away and various things.
Well, of course he did.
Is that true?
Yeah, of course he did. He was very, very generous. Everybody around him who he loved, he gave them gifts.
Yeah.
And, a Cadillac in America, it sounds like an expensive gift, but to a multimillionaire like him.
Yes.
And cars aren't as expensive in America as they are over here, so it wasn't too bad a gift, but it's probably about the height of what you could give to someone as a sign of your appreciation. And yes, he used to do that a lot.
What was your favourite Elvis record?
Well, I like most of Elvis, I'm not a big Vegas fan. I'm not a big one for that period. I grew up on rock and roll, like everybody else. I was listening to Heartbreak Hotel on Radio Luxembourg and fell in love with the man. But I think, if we want to see how broad this guy's voice is, let's go for Don't.
Don't, baby, don't say don't. Don't, please, don't.
Well, there's Elvis Presley and Don't. That's a long title, isn't it?
It's one of the shortest titles in the world, but what a beautiful ballad, and doesn't he sing it well?
Oh, fantastic. Now, I wanted to ask you, you've got this box set about the albums on the DMC website. What is that again, please?
Okay, it's called the Elvis Radio Trilogy. There's 3 CDs, and the first one is myself and Todd Slaughter and a guy called Ian Bailey who used to work for the fan club, and we talk for an hour about our first experience when we met Elvis, and we play the interview I did with Elvis. We describe everything about the trip, how we met the Colonel. We describe, the excitement of being asked to go on stage, and we hear the recording that somebody in the audience did of my actual, announcement.
Oh, wow.
And about, the money. By the way, the money that the Colonel made with the merchandise he sold us that day.
Was it true that they used to split it 50-50?
Well, I don't. Probably. That's probably true. There are a lot of managers who do that, But the point about the money he took from the fans for the merchandise, he gave it back to us.
Yes.
Every penny. Yeah. And he said, when you get to Los Angeles, which was where we were going next, he said, you hire a hall, hire a band, and have a party on Elvis. So that's Colonel Parker for you. I thought he was a brilliant guy.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for talking about Elvis today. And we're going to play out with your second choice of record. What is that, Tony, please?
It can be anything from the King Creole album. What about New Orleans? A bit of jazz, a bit of blues.
Okay, we'll play that for you. Thank you very much indeed, Tony.
Peter, my pleasure. Great talking to you again after all these years.
Thank you.
And love to everybody.
Okay.